All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love each and every day with the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry. But as we've mentioned in the past, this is a different segment right here. This is one you really need to lock in on, and especially now, Justin, that we've got actual football on the field. So Justin Tatavio joins me, and hopefully we can make this happen every Tuesday during the football season. You can join him on Ironman Football, also on State of the U, breaking down the X's and O's. And Justin's done a great job for us, taking a look at specifically different facets of offensive football and what it really means and what we can decipher as fans and try to learn the game. But Justin, this is exactly what I wanted to get to. Obviously, now we got football on the field and we could say, okay, we watched this as fans. What did we really see in the mind of a coach, in the eyes of a coach, with this Miami game against Florida, with a new starting quarterback in Jarren Williams, with a new offensive coordinator in Dan Enos, with all the expectation of what it was going to look like versus what we saw last year? Would love to hear your take on this now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got exactly what many realistic fans expected, right? Whether they were national fans or fans to Florida Gators or Miami Hurricanes. You had a young quarterback really getting the first experience of his career. He barely played against Savannah State, a year ago, and getting the first experience against one of the better defenses in all of college football. And a defensive coordinator that knows how to bring pressure and from different places. You had a little bit of the zone blitz pressure. You had some man blitz pressure. It was coming from corners. It was coming from the inside. There were some twists and stunts and things. So he was getting a lot thrown at him. And the Gators seemed to come out a little bit early on and maybe play a little more vanilla to get comfortable. And then as the game went on, they just turning up the heat and bringing up the pressure. And that's what seemed to sort of change the play calling and also some of the results as the game went on. And I think as far as what people felt like with Florida's defense, what people felt like with Miami's offensive line, I think you got pretty much an expectation met reality situation.
Yeah, some of the people I was watching the game with in particular weren't real happy with Jarren Williams holding on to the ball at times, but at the same time, the kid's making his first start. He's looking at live bullets for the first time. Number two, the offensive line was under siege against a very, very good front four, and there are obvious situations that were passing situations, and that makes it so much easier for the defense pinning the ears back. In regards to Dan Enos's imprint on this game versus what we saw last year, we were expecting more motion. What were some of the nuances that you saw out of Dan Enos?
Early on there was some good stuff. You saw your shifts and your motions and kind of like breaking out of a tight formation into empty. I think at one point, and they completed that throw, and then it sort of progressed from maybe those were more to him like openers. The plays that you call. The first 5 to 10, 15 plays of the game, and then they didn't really revisit the openers, right? Even if they worked, you just didn't see them again. And then it became sort of into the bulk of what you're going to do. There were times where, you're looking at it, you're wondering, like, why, when I was going through all the sacks and then one that looked like it was going to be a sack and was just like a throwaway at the last second, almost intentional grounding. Your data on them is a lot of 1st and 10 and 2nd and 5 or 6. And those aren't necessarily situations where you've got to rock back and throw deep, right? You could have, gone after, the Florida defense in a different way, but Florida was ready to bring pressure. And, Williams and the offensive line really ready to take it on. So a little bit of it was, down in distance. Why on 2nd and 5 are you trying to set up a long play that puts you in 3rd and long? Why aren't you just trying to get to 3rd and 1 or just a short little change 1st down, running something like mesh or, even hitches and easy stuffs, they ran slant arrow on the empty set. Like, why wouldn't you just try to throw a quick little route to a tight end? Like, why are you doing things that take so long, especially with some of the play action stuff? Well, as soon as the quarterback turns his back, he better whip around and know exactly who he's throwing to, basically, or throw it away. Instead, he was going through like a 3-man progression, and his back had been turned. Well, you knew the offensive line wasn't good enough for that, and you knew he was young, and the decision making was going to be slow. So why give him that much that he has to do, especially with his back is turned? I like play action where guys just come across, and that way the entire time you're making a read anyway, right? As soon as you flip your back, obviously you got to turn around and get your eyes set back, and you don't know where guys have gone, how fast they move, they were jammed or if not, and now you're trying to find people as opposed to seeing them the entire way. So some of this stuff was schematic. I wouldn't blame Williams for all of that. I didn't see a lot of what I would call a rush route, which is a back swinging out of the backfield or a tight end running, some kind of like little speed route, speed out, or something like that, where, or even in the mesh concept, right, where if I get pressure, I just need to throw it here. Like, okay, if a guy blitzes, two guys blitz from the right, I'm going to throw the route that's right behind them. Don't throw the other way where they're dropping. Throw the route right behind those two guys. I didn't see a lot of that. So sometimes that was on Williams. As a quarterback, he held the ball too long. He didn't really like step up and out. He would just sort of step up and run into people, or he would just stay back and basically be a target. There was times where I thought it was schematic, times where I thought it was decision making. They went to the well on throwing the running back screen to DJ Dallas like too many times towards the end of the game. Like, you've already done it too much. You have to have a variable to that. Do you have a double screen where you look to the back? If he's covered, you flip over and throw a tunnel to the backside. So there wasn't some of these, or a middle screen of some kind, where now it's over the middle. It's not always the back trailing off to the side. Sometimes it was schematic. Sometimes it was the left or right tackle that were just bad at times. A true freshman, what do you expect against Florida Gators, right? I mean, you got what you expected. There were times where he looked great, and there were times where he looked real bad. But that was going to happen. And some of them was obvious passing down. 2nd and 26, 3rd and 27, 3rd and 21. What are you going to do? 4th and 9, end of the game. What are you going to do?
Yeah, a lot of these people I talked to after the game and saw online complaining about sloppy football. This was the ugliest game I've ever seen, and this was atrocious, and so forth. My goodness, these are 18 and 19-year-old kids who don't get any preseason games, and there's speed and athleticism on defense all over the place. You just can't expect these games to be flawless. I thought it was an exciting game. Yeah, there were mistakes all over the place. We saw the 6 pre-snap penalties for Miami in the first half. I got to think that's the byproduct of a first-year head coach, first game, and a first-time quarterback out there.
Yeah, a lot of new starters. Just in general, between the offensive line, there's 2 starters back, I think, on the O-line. When you're looking at, tight end, Jordan was back, but, you lost Travis Homer. In the receiving core, Osborne's new to the entire program. Thomas, had his issues, towards the end of the year. So you're looking at some newer guys getting in playing time and playing for the team. The thing that every coach does to prove that they are a really great manager of their program is control the controllables. You can't help it if somebody else has a bigger, bagman bag to hand somebody to get a 5-star recruit. But you can control how well your players develop once you've acquired the right people. And so if you're not competing with the biggest SEC names financially, then you have to, basically the keys of, human resources, you have to identify, select, and retain the best people. And so who are the best people for a Miami? Are they competing with Alabama and some of those other programs for talent? Probably not. You haven't won. Alabama and Clemson have won. You don't have the SEC branding behind you. Your conference isn't, allegedly as successful, although Clemson just keeps winning. But I think as a whole, top to bottom, in your rival, biggest rival, Florida, with you, you're both sort of down. I don't know. There's a lot where I don't think you're going to get the number 1 signing class in the country at Miami. I think you're going to look like you are for a while. It's going to be, 10, 12, 6, things like that. But I don't think you're going to consistently be in the top 5. So what do you have to do? You have to develop and deploy as the best in the country. And so does Miami, have the strength and conditioning program to develop them? I think it's in the right, they're on the right path. Do I think that they necessarily deployed that well? No, I wonder. You expect Miami defense to have more than, I think it was 1 sack, a handful of tackles for loss, and 3 hurries. It wasn't what you expected. When you expect Miami to be back there with 7, 8, 9 tackles for loss, 4 or 5 sacks. There was like one. I think it was one sack. So, I mean, how do you not get to Franks? It's not like Florida has the greatest offensive line either. So that was a little more surprising for me that there weren't more sacks, hurries, and tackles for loss. I really thought that there would be from the defensive ends, maybe not necessarily the tackles with Nessa Silvera being out. But, there were pros and cons. I mean, if you really look at the game, the Hurricanes had, only scored 20 points and had the chance to win a game. I mean, you have a drop touchdown in the end zone. You have the fumbled punt. And when, long way around this rabbit hole, but, right back into the circle of controlling the controllables, you said pre-snap penalties are a huge one. Bad snaps would be one, which I didn't recall a bad snap. Maybe there was something once. You have special teams just miscues. You had them. You had the muff punt. You had a missed field goal. That was a chip shot. Some of those things. I don't recall a shanked punt, where it just went off the side of his foot for 9 yards, like the Fiegels kid was doing. But there were some things in the kicking game that didn't add up. There were some of those penalties. There were some drops, obviously. Those things that you can't do. See, when you control the controllables, you can't do those things, and they did them.
We got Justin DeTavio on the line talking Florida and Miami and what he saw in reviewing the game for a second time, the Gators and the Canes, and, of course, a 24-20 result in a sloppy football game, but exciting down to the wire. So I'll ask you the same kind of question in regards to not necessarily offensive coordinator and quarterback on the Florida side, but it's the head coach who's got his hands on the offense, and Dan Mullen and Felipe Franks. So Franks has all the tangibles of an NFL prospect. He's a big kid, big frame, big arm. Man, if anybody saw him throw that Hail Mary against Tennessee a couple years ago, man, he can wing it. And he threw a beautiful bomb down the seam right on the kid's hands, either Swain or Hammond, for a touchdown late in the game in the fourth quarter at some point to take the lead. But he obviously made his mistakes as well. They got to clean up this statistic, Justin, for me. Forced turnovers and just turnovers. So Miami had 4 turnovers on defense. They forced the last one. The first 3 were missed exchanges. They were a kind of a bad pitch on the kid's shoulder that he fumbled. They weren't forced fumbles, but anyway, or a forced interception. Anyway, Felipe Franks is a prospect. Just your thoughts about his throwing ability, his ability to read a defense, what you saw out of him. And Dan Mullen really improved this offense just remarkably last season. What's his style, and what does he bring that makes him such a well-respected offensive mind?
I think for Mullen, a lot of what he did at Mississippi State was development. I think he took guys other people didn't want or necessarily hadn't seen, and I think that he ran away with it with developing them. He was, whether it was in the weight room or whether it was just the way that he deployed talent. I thought that they did a really good job as developers. When you look at Franks, they've done a lot with him too in a very short amount of time from his freshman year. I was kind of high on him as well coming out of high school. He obviously had kind of taken that dip back, and he improved last year. But, he strikes me as another one of these guys that gets drafted in the first round because he's so tall and big and has a strong arm, and then nothing ever happens, right? Like the Jamarcus Russell's, Kyle Bowlers, who's the one from Wyoming, Daniel Jones. You think of those guys and you're like, is he that good? I'm not really sure if he's that good. So I think that there is a lot that goes on in the NFL where they just have these like boxes that they check. And Baker Mayfield said something about, well, the dude didn't win. I don't know. You're taking guys that didn't win. Well, it's true. Like it's very rare to watch someone that didn't have success ever in their life, or ever in college, move on and become successful in the NFL. Like when I think of winning, I don't just mean the championship. Obviously, that doesn't matter, but I mean winning games. Like Baker Mayfield won games. I think the Browns are gonna be really good this year. You look at a lot of these guys; they had majorly successful seasons. Like even going way back to Jim Kelly putting Miami through one of their more successful seasons at the time that they had ever had. When he became the quarterback, all of a sudden they started to win, right? So there are guys that sometimes overcome talent. Bernie Kosar, but he was a winner, right? got the Browns into the playoffs and stuff, things they couldn't even dream of doing until this year. There are guys who are just winners, and that's who you want. You want a guy that knows how to go out, compete, and win, and has the idea in their head that they will always win football games. It's not, an accident. It's clarity, confidence, conviction. They will go out and win a football game, and it's really important. So I kind of agreed with Baker Mayfield. It's hard to take a Daniel Jones from me, who, in the rain played poorly. I mean, that's a huge thing in the NFL. That ball is slick and huge. And then you're being watched on how much air is in it, obviously. So you can't do that anymore. They used to back in the day, back in the old days when, Tecmo Super Bowl days, where everybody all of a sudden somehow was a great quarterback. And why are they not now? You start wondering if they were just doctoring the hell out of the ball and gloves and stuff. How are there so many Hall of Fame quarterbacks in one video game, Tecmo Super Bowl? I don't know. Between Warren Moon, Kelly, think about all these guys. Montana, Steve Young. Steve Young was the damn backup in that game. How do you, hell, Brett Favre didn't even make it in the game. That's how loaded the game was. So how do you justify all that? I don't know. I always wondered. Elway and Marino are in there. Like, how do you justify that? Like, why are guys not as successful? But anyway, that's a long way around Frank's as well. But I just think, he's okay. I don't think that he's going to be some guy that goes into the NFL and dominates or anything like that. I think he's a college football player.
Justin, as soon as you made the comment, you got to win in college, that obviously shows us that you're a winner. Yeah, you can't win championships because there's only so many of those guys that can win the championship, and then conference championships, there's only 5 per year. But win games, go out there and win games, consistently win games. And I must have scanned 25 to 30 quarterbacks present and near past in the NFL, and I couldn't come up with anybody. I came up with one guy who didn't win in college, won big in the NFL. I must have scanned 25 or 30 guys, and everything you said holds true, even down to the Blake Bortles, Andy Dalton level of average NFL quarterback. They won a ton of games in college. Andy Dalton had an undefeated team at TCU. So I got one guy for you out of about 30 I scanned.
Who was
John Elway.
Elway.
He won like 5 or 6 games at Stanford every year. They were just so bad. They'd go 500. Then, of course, he was one of the greatest in the NFL. But, what you say 99% of the time, these guys are winning big, Russell Wilson, on down the line. I went through everybody I could think of. Absolutely.
Yeah, the one guy who should be playing it isn't Kaepernick. He was a winner in college, ran for thousands of yards and threw for thousands of yards. And you're telling me, I can't remember who they just pulled off the scrap. The Bucks are playing Vincent Testaverde as a back quarterback. Not Vinny. Vinny would be better than Vincent, even though he's probably 65 years old. This is a guy who couldn't play anywhere. He couldn't play at Texas Tech. He couldn't play at Miami. You're telling me he's better than Kaepernick is a crazy story. And how Blaine Gabbert still had a job, I don't understand. How can't you find better guys than Blaine Gabbert and Vincent Testaverde to be in your program or on your team?
We'll have to talk about Kaepernick at some point, because what I saw was he's not my style quarterback, but man, he was really efficient. So you just figure, Kaepernick, he runs around and he's a playmaker. But no, if you actually look at his numbers, he was efficient and he didn't turn the ball over. He didn't throw interceptions. He extremely high passer rating, in addition to being an explosive runner, and obviously was a winner, took a team to a Super Bowl, and he couldn't have gotten that bad that quickly.
Yeah. I think he's a better quarterback than Tim Tebow, and I still think Tim Tebow should still be around as a backup quarterback. Or if Tebow had taken a Taysom Hill route and said, "I'll play some quarterback, but I'll do all these other things," and maybe he did and didn't, and I'm not sure. It just didn't seem like he did it early enough, like soon enough. And by the time that he went to do it, maybe it was just too late. And the media circus behind, Taysom Hill doesn't get a media circus, right? He just sort of, they bring him up every once in a while. But Tebow obviously brings a lot of media. I guess Kaepernick does as well. But you would think somebody would want to take the quote-unquote risk for a reward on, sure, some media comes around, but the guy can play football. Like you said, he was in a Super Bowl. He was a winner in college. He's a winner in the NFL. I don't get it. They've taken the chances on guys who beat people, beat their significant others and major cocaine problems and stuff, but not on a guy that speaks his mind blown.
And with Tebow, I would never tout him as a starting quarterback, a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL. But it is interesting that a guy who did get a chance to start one year, led his team to the playoffs, won a playoff game, never got another chance. And I think his career record's 8-4. I can't imagine that there's a quarterback in the history of the NFL who went 8-4 who was never given a chance to start another game.
Oh man, this name is sitting right there for me, and he sort of faded away. He wound up coaching at Trinity Prep in Winter Park, Florida, and he Krujek, right, was UCF coach.
Mike Krujek with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Didn't he have really successful? And then it was sort of like
he probably did because they had the steel curtain and they gave up like 3 points a game. I'd have to look that up, but yeah, filling in for Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah, because when Roethlisberger took over, he was one of the most successful rookies of all time, right? When Roethlisberger took over, but he was really competing with Krujek's record, I think, of rookie quarterback win percentage or something.
Good stuff. Justin Tatavio, hopefully joining us every Tuesday. We will have the live stream and live chat working for you to ask questions and comments. And he'll be breaking down whatever catches his eye in terms of offensive football that we will see week to week. And this is what it's all about. We finally stopped talking, but we talk. Of course, we'll keep talking, but we'll talk about actually football on the field finally that we get to see. Justin, we appreciate you stopping by.
All right, man. Thanks.
Good stuff. I thought I had the live stream going, but it was on private. So